What happens? What happens in your life when you feel you're not good enough? Today's episode is the mental recipe of feeling not enough. And I'm Mario Leone. Welcome to the Voices of Victory channel. And we're going to go over it right here, right now. That little mental recipe in the back of your head of I'm not enough or something is wrong with me. That's another way I'll be referring to it. So you yourself might walk into certain rooms already feeling judged by everyone around you. You might think that as they're looking at you, there's a whole bunch of thoughts and judgments about you. Not because people actually hate you in some way, shape, or form, but deep down you carry that mental recipe that says, I'm not enough. There's something totally wrong with me, and I have to prove my worth. I have to prove who I am. So that little mental recipe impacts your relationships, your confidence, your dating, work, social media, and just everyday life all around, including parenting for some people. And most people don't even realize it's running in your mind in the background, and it's going to impact your entire life. And we're talking about the mental recipe of shame and feeling quote unquote defective. And we have to take a hard look at how real self-worth gets created over time. One way you can understand it is action creates evidence. But there's more to it because you have to be able to get to action. And if you have a fear of taking action, well, that can be part of the problem. So the mental recipe of something is wrong with me, and it starts very young. You could have been very criticized as a child, and that became your inner self-talk. Your inner voice comes from that one authoritative parent or person, caregiver in your life that criticized you constantly as a child. And maybe you felt ignored. Your emotions were totally ignored. You got compared to your siblings. You got compared to your brother or sister, or maybe your cousins, or maybe even people at school. And you felt rejected quite often. And you grow up feeling that love has a bunch of conditions directly attached to it. Like every single solitary action of love had some kind of price tag to it, some kind of condition that was attached to it. And when you hear this for years, you hear that little inner voice, your brain starts to look at the whole narrative and story and accept it as an absolute truth. And what happens is you stop thinking that you've made mistakes or you made an error. You stop thinking about it that way. You look at it like there's something wrong with me. And that very belief, that entire belief, starts moving your life into a direction that you don't want it to go. And it goes in that direction. So what do you do now in modern day 2026? You overthink the conversations. You have difficulty with vulnerability because vulnerability is no longer hiding parts of who you are. So what do? You actually hide parts of yourself. You fear rejection. You've become a people pleaser and you can't seem to find any other way around it. You're chasing perfection, and it has to be perfection because you will not accept looking like a failure in front of other people. So you chase perfection. And that makes constant worry. And the reason why it's constant worry is you don't want to disappoint others. You don't want to disappoint everyone around you. So what happens? You become the quiet person, the person who doesn't want to speak, the person who doesn't want to talk, the person who doesn't want to engage in conversations when the groups are actually talking. Some of you might even become overly successful, that you have to have this high demand on who you are. So you might chase attention, you might chase validation, money, relationships, or just downright more approval overall. But here's the deal. Underneath all of this, when we strip away all of the surface stuff, it's the same thing. It's the same idea, the same belief. And here's the belief. I need to prove that I'm worthy to other people. So it becomes a sense of shame, and that shame changes how people see themselves. So when shame becomes a part of your identity and who you are, your brain starts looking around. It looks for evidence. Remember we said action creates evidence, and your brain will search for proof or evidence. And sometimes you could take action and go in a different direction, but you're already looking for the proof everywhere else. And that's what's important, is when you're working on your identity, you have to be able to create that proof for yourself. You can't look at the proof of everywhere else. So when you get broken up with in a relationship, that feels personal to you, that you feel that you're at fault. If you make a mistake, it feels personal. I'm a failure. It's not that I've experienced failure. It becomes I am a failure. Criticism feels massive. It's like every time you criticize, you will criticize yourself. And as you criticize yourself, you'll also feel the need to criticize others, because it's the same mechanism that's on the inside is outside. It's mirrored. Whatever's on the inside is mirrored to the outside world. Now, that being said, rejection feels like a permanent thing. That once you get rejected in a relationship or in dating, you will replay that for weeks in your head. And you will let it take up rent and mental space in your skull. So even a compliment, if someone gives you like a heartfelt compliment, that can actually feel uncontrollable, because somehow that compliment just totally has a head-on collision with the story and narrative that's already running in your mind. So someone that gives you a compliment, the first thing you'll say in your head is, what do they want? They obviously want something, right? Even though it's a heartfelt, actual compliment. But it goes against that little narrative that's inside your head. And you know what it is? I'll be honest with you. It's exhausting. It creates emotional exhaustion, without a doubt. So what happens is you start performing every day. You start performing because you don't want to live naturally. It's all about performance. It's all about how you look, because how you look is actually going to matter. But we need to look at what's going on. You might stop and take notice of everything you say all the time. Did I say the right thing? Did I say the right thing to the right people in front of the right group? So what you do is you're constantly changing what you say in your head in order to portray yourself in a certain way. So you have to control the way you're portrayed in front of other people. The worst part about it is embarrassment. When you get embarrassed, it's not just embarrassment, it's embarrassment times 100. So you fear that. When you do experience it, it's probably worse than most people. You will feel failure, not really understanding the principle of iteration, that you have the concept of changing things on the fly as you go. That's what iteration's all about. It's about updating and changing until you get something correctly. Instead, what you'll do is try to nail it perfectly the first time until you realize that that's impossible and you can't always do that. So here's the deal. It might work some of the times, but it certainly is not going to work all of the time. You can't turn it into a generalization because it simply is impossible. So what happens is you fear people seeing the real version of who you actually are on the inside. So what does this do? Well, you lose that connection with who you are. When you get back home to who you are on the inside, you start to reconnect with your identity and who you are on the inside. And just because a person's successful, and that's the thing, they may become very successful, but that success doesn't become a band-aid to suddenly heal all the shame that you've carried as a kid. It doesn't work that way. It will not work that way. And you could have tons of success, you could have the followers, you could have the money, you could have the attractiveness, you could have your talent, you could have your status, your cash flow. And you know what? Underneath all of it, you can still feel very insecure. Very insecure. Because you know what? Shame is an inside game, and it's happening internally inside of you. And if you're going outside of yourself for validation, it might give you a sense of temporary relief, but it really doesn't heal the shame. It doesn't create lasting self-worth. And that's why people keep chasing more and more and more attention, more success, more approval, and you'll feel empty inside. And that's the hard part. That's what you have to go to sleep with at night. And your brain will recall that. And you'll say, I hate myself. And that's the worst part about it. When we betray ourselves, when we get to the point, betrayal, like self-betrayal, means you're supposed to do something. You know, what you say and what you do is supposed to go together. and that's supposed to reinforce your identity. And the moment that you say you're going to do something and you don't do it, you get that empty feeling. You get that self-betrayal. You repeat that in the middle of the night in your mind. I hate myself because I didn't follow through. Now, when we look at self-worth, actual self-worth and the development of self-worth, it becomes really strong. And it becomes strong through understanding the emotional meaning of things, our values, as well as the action we take. Because the action we take provides us with, guess what? Evidence. That's what it's all about. So when you have self-worth, you can allow mistakes. You could actually shake hands with mistakes because it's your relationship to failure. It's not the failure itself. And you have to allow yourself room to grow. You have to allow yourself imperfection. You have to allow yourself to exist without constantly having to prove who you are to the rest of the world. Some people use that as gasoline. They use it as like motivational gasoline. I'm going to prove myself to everyone. And then what they tend to discover is that you could prove yourself to certain people all day, but that doesn't constitute that you can convince them. And some people will deny being convinced just out of mere spite of you. That's what you need to understand. So that is very exhausting at the end of the day. And that changes how life actually feels. Your failure, it becomes something easier to recover from once you develop that self-worth, once you start to take action. And when you get rejected, you realize that someone else had their own mental recipe, and that mental recipe's got nothing to do with you. And you start to realize that it's not as personal anymore because that other person has their own sense of the world. They approach life with a completely different mental recipe than you do. And when you start to criticize or get criticism, it becomes easier to process because you understand that when people do criticize you, that also may be a mental recipe of their own, and it may have nothing to do with you. And the way you handle and understand criticism will also be different. So your nervous system begins to chill the hell out. And guess what? It's not treating every single thing as a damn mistake anymore. It's not proof of that you're unworthy in some way, shape, or form. So what I want to bring out as an overall underlying principle here is that shame has become your identity. And it sucks. I'll admit it. It sucks. And over time, that shame is no longer emotional anymore. It starts feeling truthful to people. It becomes who you are. It's like, this is who I believe I am. And they reinforce this into their identity. And this changes how you experience life. Now, when you're a perfectionist, it creates that constant, overwhelming, disgusting pressure on you. And the people that chase it, they chase the perfection. Why do they do it? Because they fear being judged. It's all about how they look. When I say how they look, it's relative to the fear of being judged by others. So this creates massive anxiety. You get burnt out, and there's total, undeniable self-criticism. Now, outside of that, validation becomes part and parcel of the whole thing, because when you validate, it creates this little relief. Okay, I feel comfortable now. I've just validated. Because attention and approval can somehow feel good emotionally. So it's kind of like getting a tiny dopamine hit that's fake based on the attention you get and the approval you actually get. At the end of the day, though, your self-worth gets stronger because you yourself decide to approve of yourself. You decide to accept who you are. Now, when that happens, when you get self-acceptance, that's awesome when you start to accept who you are, because what that does is it creates emotional stability. And people who feel stable, they feel emotionally stable, they stop treating mistakes like a personal concept, a personal failure. So this creates stronger confidence over time. So here it is at the end of the day, and we're going to wrap it up right here. A lot of people really aren't fighting reality like they think they are. They're fighting their own mental recipe, not realizing that other people have their mental recipe, and they've built their own recipe years ago. And when you start challenging that recipe, your whole life begins to change. You get to be the chef in this entire process. And that's the fun part, because your goal in life wasn't ever to be perfect. It is physically impossible to be perfect because you're constantly unfolding every single day and you're growing, shaping, and changing. You're not fixed, you're not finished, you're not complete, and you're not going to be. Even when you reach that PhD, there's still more work to do. Even when you reach that job, that car, that microwave, that house, whatever the case may be, whatever you reach, it's still not complete. You know, one person's ceiling is another person's floor. So you're going to get to that point, and you're always going to get this sense of emptiness, like there must be more here. But there isn't more here, because life is a journey and it's not in a straight line. But it is important for you to feel content and complete on the inside, and you understand that life is going to throw everything at you sideways. And it's all about your journey, because your journey is not their journey is not yours. Live it, move forward, and be content in your heart. Have a great day, and see you on the next episode. Don't forget to click the link below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and check out my YouTube. My channel is doing quite well right now, and it's exciting to see that I'm actually helping people. I care about helping people, and that's what this channel is all about. Have a great day.